All right, so in today's lesson, we're going to talk about ratios and rates. Now, this is a very big thing for 6th grade because you haven't had many dealings with ratios or rates. However, you're going to find that they're not hard. Just because you haven't learned about them does not make them hard. So, a ratio, not to be mistaken with ratio or ratio or whatever, it's ratios and rates. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities by division. All right, ratios can be identified as a part of something to another part, boys to girls. They can be written as part to whole. That would be like boys to the total class. Or whole to whole. Miss Armstrong's whole class to Miss Lopez's whole class. There are 3 ways to write a ratio. We've got it, the 3 ways that we talk about them are the fraction form. That's when you write a ratio with a fraction bar, the A and the B. Remember when we talked about rational numbers, we said that a rational number had to be written in A over B form. That would be writing your ratio as a fraction. Using the word to between them. And then our colon. Not to be mistaken with the colon inside your stomach. All right, so the ratio A to B can be written as A to B, A to B, or A to B. All 3 of these ways are still said or worded A to B, A to B, A to B. So let's look at it as an example. So here in our example, we have in class there are 7 cats and 12 dogs. Write each ratio 3 ways. So cats to dogs. It is very, very important that when we talk about ratios, the order matters. So if cats comes first, that's what I need to put first. Whether or not it's a bigger number, we have to do it in that order. So there are 7 cats to 12 dogs. And we're writing them all 3 ways. So 7 to 12, 7 to 12, and then 7:12. So this would be an example of a part to part. Next one is dogs to total. So there's 12 dogs to how many total animals? 12 plus 7 is going to give me 19. So 12 to 19. 12 dogs to 19 total animals. Write it 3 ways, our fraction way, and and our word way. This would be an example of a part to whole. All right. Although we're really not going to go deep into rates, I want you to be aware of what a rate is. A rate is a ratio of 2 quantities using different units. A unit rate, and we'll go further into unit rates a little bit further into the lesson, but as long as we kind of are familiar with the word unit rate. A unit rate compares a quantity to one. That would be like miles per gallon, feet per second, miles per hour, cost for one can, whatever. Equivalent ratios. Equivalent ratios are also known as equivalent fractions. We come up with our equivalent fraction or equivalent ratios the same way that we would do our equivalent fractions. Whatever you do to one, you got to do to the other. So equivalent ratios are just ratios that are equal to each other. You can find equivalent ratios by multiplying or dividing, just like we did equivalent fractions, each quantity in the ratio by the same number. Like when we talked about fractions, whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. When we're finding equivalent ratios, whatever you do to one side, you need to do to the other. Unit rates always have a denominator of 1. Again, we'll go further into that and what that looks like in a couple of days. To find the unit rate, write the rate as a fraction. And then you're going to use division and write the equivalent fraction with the denominator of 1. We will go over these examples more whenever we get into unit rates and how to find it. But our big main focus here is what a ratio is. That's a comparison of two quantities using the division, because we talked about this, that this fraction bar means division, and that we can write it 3 different ways. All right, so now you kind of have an idea of what a ratio is.